So the Tennessee Titans continue to be one of the most perplexing teams in the NFL. They'll seemingly beat anybody or lose to anybody on any given week, but they were able to get a pretty dominating win against a team that you would say if you're going to make the playoffs, you should be able to dominate in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not that the Jaguars are a bad team, but, if you're the Titans and you're trying to make the playoffs, which right now they are currently tied for a playoff spot, although they don't have the tiebreaker, you would like to be able to dominate a team like this, and that's exactly what they were able to do. At one point, they were up 35-3. The final score ended up being 42-20, but they definitely dominated, and it was pretty much a wire-to-wire victory. While Jacksonville did keep it close in the early going and ended up being 7-3 at the half, in the third quarter, Tennessee went off, and they outscored the Jaguars 28-8 in that third quarter, and a huge part of that, in the fact that the Titans were able to put up so many points, was Derrick Henry getting 159 yards on just 19 carries. That's 8.4 yards per carry, and he also had 2 touchdowns on the day. In fact, the Tennessee Titans had over 200 yards of rushing on the day, so very good performance through the ground game. And let's just jump into what made Derrick Henry so good against this Jacksonville team. Maybe my favorite play of the day was this one, which actually didn't even end up counting, but it's going to be a screen pass. So what the Tennessee Titans are going to do is they're going to have their 2 eligible receivers run just deep routes, which is going to try to get the 2 Jaguars who are in charge of covering them to also follow them deep. And then what they can simply do is have their center move up the block that Jacksonville player right over there, and then Henry will just, run like that. You can just toss it up to him, and hopefully he can run for a good amount of yards. And also, Tennessee will have a right guard who's going to be running up, so he can lead block. So potentially this could result in maybe a touchdown if everything works out perfectly, but at the very least, it could just result in a solid gain. And once this play starts to develop, as you notice, it is working out very well. Tennessee is absolutely doing a perfect job on this play. It already looks like they're going to get the first down, but probably not the touchdown because of what you see circled right there. There is a Jacksonville Jaguars player who's doing a pretty good job of making sure he will be able to get off this block once Henry approaches him. Especially if Henry were to run to the bottom half of the screen, sort of towards the sideline, then he could easily just get off the block and push Henry out, which still wouldn't be the end of the world, but Henry obviously wants a touchdown here. Why not try to go for the touchdown? But you also have another Jacksonville player right there. So if Henry decides to run in between them, then it probably won't work out because he'll be able to either disrupt the play or his other blocker won't be able to run up and make a block. So realistically, it looks like at a certain point, Henry is going to get tackled. Just somebody would probably be able to get off their block. But watch what Henry's going to do. He's going to start to go through the middle, but then go to the sideline, which allows him to gain more yards. At this point, it's not looking too great for a touchdown, but hey, you've definitely gotten the first down, you got a few more yards, and it's going to be tough to get around this, but he's going to be able to actually get out of this situation as well, and he gets into the end zone for a touchdown that ends up not counting. It didn't end up counting because there was a penalty on the play, but it is still one of the better plays you will see. Definitely a highlight reel level play from Henry. And it is kind of true that when you see Derrick Henry make a great play, they are great plays. They aren't just significant plays. Of course, we all remember possibly the greatest run in NFL history, his 99-yard run against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he definitely can make those highlight reel plays. But highlight reel plays are fun, but you usually want a guy who can just be consistently good as opposed to can just make a couple of splash plays. Obviously, splash plays are great, but more often than not, as a running back, you want a guy who can consistently eat up yardage, and that is what Henry can do, and this play is a good example of how he can be effective at it. The way it's going to work for Jacksonville is, first, it's going to be all one-on-one matchups, and so then what they're going to do is actually send their fullback out to block that Jacksonville player, meaning that every Jaguar is getting taken care of except for the edge rusher on the right side of the screen, which is okay since it's going to be a run to the left side of the screen. That's why you're leaving him unblocked. But the dilemma, as you see, is that this play took a little bit longer to develop, so now there's a Jaguar who can absolutely make a tackle on Henry. Henry is in a little bit of trouble right here, and you know what? Lesser halfbacks will not be able to gain many yards after this point. But Henry has 2 things that make him such an effective halfback. It's his speed paired with his size. Watch how he's able to just blow by that edge rusher. There was a little bit of contact, but a little bit of contact isn't going to bring Henry down. And obviously he's fast enough to not put himself in a situation where there would be a lot of contact, which is why he kind of is one of those perfect situations of a guy who is quick enough to make sure that it's tough for you to actually get good contact on him and get in position to wrap him up and take him down. But at the same time, he's big enough that if you don't get that contact the way you want it to, he probably won't go down. There's plenty of speed guys who are very quick, and it's hard to really make sure that you're in great position to tackle them, but all you have to do is get some contact and they'll go down. And meanwhile, there's some power guys who you can really have a hard time if you don't have perfect positioning to try and make a tackle, but it's easier to get in position because they are slower. But not Henry, he is just as quick as he is big. Like, this next one's another perfect example of that, actually, where what's going to happen for Tennessee is they're going to have their center and their left guard double team that Jaguar right there, and then their left guard will get off the double team and move up to block a linebacker. Pretty simple idea, but it is not going to work out too well. Watch how 56 for Jacksonville simply just blows by Tennessee's left guard, and at this point, this is usually where a play gets blown up. The linebacker is able to shoot through the gap, make a tackle on the halfback, and they lose a few yards. This is how loss of yards happen, so that is definitely something that you would think could happen while looking at this still image. But with Henry's acceleration and speed, he's able to just blow by him, and he turns what could have easily been a loss of yards into a huge pickup. That was not a good block. In fact, somebody completely whiffed on their block, but even with that, Henry was able to get a first down out of it. So that's kind of what he brings to the table for Tennessee, and when he can be effective, and also now when teams are respecting the passing game a little bit more with Ryan Tannehill and as quarterback, this Tennessee Titans offense is starting to look pretty good. I mean, I still say the strong point of their team is their defense, but at the same time, now the fact that their offense is sort of waking up a little bit, this can actually just be a huge situation and something that can be really great for the Titans. And who knows? I mean, I do think that playoffs is not out of the question. They have some tough matchups coming up, but they're a tough matchup right now. They can beat anybody. They have beaten the Chiefs. And a huge part of the reason is because of Henry. It really is. One more thing I should probably bring up about Henry is, everybody always talks about his size. People do talk about his speed, although probably not as much as they should. But what really makes him an effective player and what really makes him good in the NFL, a part of it is his vision. Part of it is his ability to make reads. It's very important to make reads as the running back, and he can make reads with the best of them, and this is a good example of that. What's going to happen is that first there's going to be 3 1-1 matchups right there with the center, the right guard, and the right tackle, but then their left guard and left tackle will be double teaming that Jacksonville player right there. One of them will then get off the double team to block a linebacker, and actually the edge rusher on the right side of the screen, he will be getting blocked by a tight end who will be flashing over there. So that's the way this blocking concept is supposed to work. And for Henry, he ideally would want to run around that double team somewhere. Usually when there's a double team, there's going to be a bigger hole, so that's where you want to go. But one thing you will see is that once again, it takes a little bit of time for this double team to work, and also a linebacker does a good job of clogging up that hole right there. So now for Henry, he would ideally like to run up the middle, but if he does it here, he'll probably gain a yard or two, but he's not going to gain too much. But that's not necessarily a straight up bad thing, because of the Jacksonville edge rusher right over there, he's crashing in and trying to make sure that he doesn't allow Henry to run up the middle. But since he's doing that, it opens the door for Henry to run around to the outside. That's what he does, and he's even able to fight his way into the end zone for a touchdown. So just a smart play. Not only can he beat you with his speed or his size, but he can beat you with his brains. And, that's why he's been having such a good season so far for Tennessee. He's currently 4th in the league in rushing. He's only behind Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb, and Dalvin Cook, and he's not too far behind any of those guys. I mean, Christian McCaffrey has 1,123, Chubb has 1,117, Cook has 1,017, and then Henry is at 991. So he's about 130 yards behind the leading rusher right now, so he definitely has a chance to catch up. One last play I liked from Henry, this is kind of an obscure one, but it was a play I liked from that Jacksonville Jaguars game, is this one, where it's going to be a run to the left side of the screen, but the key block I'm going to want you to take a look at is a tight end going up against an edge rusher right over there. And not just any edge rusher, but it's Josh Allen. He's a very good player, and he's going to win his matchup pretty significantly. Watch how he just pushes that tight end backwards. That's Jonnu Smith right there. He's getting pushed backwards, and what's actually going to happen is that Allen is going to push Smith into Derrick Henry. But watch how Henry just bounces off, and it kind of inadvertently creates like a juke type move, and he's able to pick up a solid gain. It's not easy to do, to take that kind of a hit, but stay on your feet and then have the wherewithal to look up and see that you have open field in front of you and pick up some more yards. Not easy to do, but Henry was still able to pull it off. So yeah, I mean, that's what he brings to the table for Tennessee. He's clearly a very good player. He probably is going to be a Pro Bowler this year, I would think. He's not been having that kind of year for sure. And it's pretty crazy to think, because he has had an up and down career for the most part up until this point, but he's definitely put it all together here in 2019. Things are working very well for him, and it's cool to see. I mean, he's definitely living up to his potential at this point. And the good news for Tennessee is the fact that they control their own destiny at this point. Their schedule is pretty tough. I mean, all the teams that they're playing are above 500 and fighting for playoff spots or for something more than a playoff spot. They played the Colts next week, the Raiders the week after. They also have 2 games against the Texans, and they play the Saints. So it's kind of a murderer's row, but at the same time, they are playing very good football right now, largely in part because of Henry. And in a weird sort of way, you're almost happier you have this situation because you control your own destiny. You could knock out the Colts potentially. You could knock out the Raiders the week after. And if you can beat the Texans twice, you can knock them out. The Saints matchup will be tough, but at the same time, even if they lose that game, it might be enough. I don't know, but it could be. There's that chance. And it almost definitely would be if they just went out besides that, because they would catch up to the Texans and have a tiebreaker on it, and unless the Colts win their other 4 matchups. Probably winning 4 out of the last 5, that would put you at 10-6 and give you a playoff spot. Maybe just winning 3 of those could get you in, but ideally you would like to go 10-6, plus finally you would break the 9-7 curse. But either way, I do think that the Titans they've actually been kind of a sneaky fun team to watch these past couple of weeks. The Titans always get, talked about as the boring team to watch, but these past couple of weeks, they've been pretty fun, I think. I guess it's just the Tannehill effect, even though I actually wasn't one of those guys that hated Mariota, although I do think that Tannehill has outplayed him, but that's neither here nor there. Those are my thoughts on the Tennessee Titans and also Derrick Henry. I sort of talked about both. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, thanks for watching.